This episode of our This Week in XR podcast is sponsored by Zapper. Zapper is one of the world's leading XR companies. Over the past 12 years, they've won numerous awards for memorable campaigns. They've democratized AR by making tools and SDKs that anyone can use. And they created ZapBox, the world's most affordable mixed reality headset. Most recently, Zapper worked with Unilever to create an enhanced QR code called Accessible QR, which enables packaged goods to speak to the blind and partially sighted. If you're thinking XR, give the team at Zapper a call or visit zapper.com to see how they can help you on your XR journey. Good morning, everybody. I'm Charlie Fink. I'm here with Rony Abovitz, who is on a ferry, on a boat in Florida.
Hi.
Ted's not with us this week, but we're happy to be here with you, Rony, after missing you for a couple of weeks. Oh, I should say, of course, it is January 26, 2024, and our guest today is David Weinstein. He's Nvidia's head of XR. So we will look forward to welcoming him in after we hit the news real quickly. But Rony, tell us, what are you doing on a ferry?
I am in my I'm in my Defender on a ferry boat going to a James Bond-esque private island, meeting an investor friend. Beyond that, I can't really tell you.
It's a private island, but it's not a secret island. It's just a private island.
It's not a secret island, but it's private, and we're having an interesting meeting today. And last time I was there was like I don't know, maybe a year ago, and there's like a beach on the island, and I was sitting there meeting this guy, and another person came by that had a falcon, and I thought, okay, it's pretty weird. He had a falcon sitting on his arm during having lunch, so it's that kind of thing.
He had
Very,
a
very weird.
falcon on his arm, but was not an Arab sheik.
No, no, it was I think an Italian gentleman.
Just a hobbyist, a falconer.
Falcon hobbyist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in the news this week, it's a little interesting funding news from a company called 11 Labs. Are you familiar with them, Rony?
Yes, yes. The AI spigot is alive and well.
Yeah, they got another 80 million at a 1.1 billion dollar valuation. So the AI unicorn pipeline keeps chugging along. Of course, they've got Class A investors like Sequoia and Andreessen, and the pedigree of the founders is Google and Planeteer. So clearly, some people who are deep tech pioneers, and I use this app in my classes and in my AI filmmaking practice, and it is quite extraordinary and getting better and better.
No, this is great stuff, Charlie. And look, I think people are astounded by the amount of capital coming in. If you look relative to the transformation of the economy, which you can measure in tens of trillions in the 2020s and 2030s, the investment's actually a small infinitesimal against that economic shift. So I think we're just going to see like continued movement by investors taking shots at every sector of the economy being transformed by AI. I think this is not the end. This is not even the end of the beginning. This is like the beginning of the beginning.
Oh yeah, this is the internet in 1993. I mean, it's
Yes. Yes.
Everything is going to be different when it's done. We just don't know exactly the timing of that. but the end is certain. One thing about this particular investment two things actually that I think are really interesting. One is that it's becoming increasingly real time, right? So you literally could be dubbed in real time with another language while you're speaking. And we've seen this from LipDub and others. This technology is developing very quickly. The other thing that I thought was a little disturbing was this was the same week where we had Joe Biden robocalls going on in Maine,
Yes.
with his cloned voice. So it's like, do we always have to have the icky bad part with the good part?
No, so Charlie, yesterday I gave a talk at Miami-Dade College with the president. It was actually a wonderful thing. It's a 120,000 student college in Miami. They have an amazing AI lab, and one of the students asked me that question, and I said, unfortunately, AI has a huge asymmetry. The amount of bad things you can do are way bigger than the amount of good things. So to be a Jedi in AI takes enormous effort. The natural entropy state is just for AI to be used for evil, bad things. And I think the market and maybe our listeners don't fully understand it. They think it might be balanced. but the evil Sith side of it is so easy, is so big. There's so many lures that it takes immense energy and capital to actually keep it away from that. So I feel like those robocalls, and this is the beginning. And I'm actually a believer that we need all kinds of like structures and ways to keep us safe, and keep AI in the path that it helps people, because there's so many pathways for AI not to help people.
I just
We could do a whole episode on that.
my big fear, as you know, and our regular listeners know, I repeat myself constantly, and I'll apologize in advance of saying this, but uh, when has man never rushed headfirst into technology, regardless of the negative consequences? And
Oppenheimer, man, Oppenheimer,
it's
right? We
terrifying.
we just did it.
It,
Yeah.
it it is terrifying. So, what happens to us, Ronnie, when we don't know what's real anymore? That's my deepest fear.
Look, I think you're going to see a movement, of like a return to full organic analog. And I'm already seeing it, right? There's a new company that's coming out with like a Walkman style cassette player, but designed like teenage engineering style. And like, it's totally not digital, right? I think you have a class of Gen Zers who are like, I don't want that anymore. I want the cassette tape, I want the vinyl, and yet I'm living in this crazy AI world. So there's this weird,
Yeah,
congruence of a retreat back to like natural things while we're jumping forward into super unnatural synthetic things. So I think we're going to see like weird philosophical bounces as people see computing surpass human ability in all areas, and then wonder what's it for? Why are we here? And I think philosophical contemplation is going to become a bigger thing,
yeah.
as jobs get wiped out and all sorts of things happen. I think it's going to be important. Like, we have to realize, what are we building these things for? And no one's thinking about that. And it is important for us to think about it right now.
I'm sorry, did you say, is it important, or it is important for us to think about
It,
it
it,
right
it
now?
is very important. It is very important for us to think about this right now.
I wish we could stop the world and just have that conversation. Um, here's another bit of news that I thought was interesting. There's a new app called Artis. It's grown very quickly. It's a subscription app that lets you take a bunch of selfies, and they can be your crappiest half awake selfies, and it will transform you into a supermodel on the exotic set, with the wardrobe of your choice. So all of a sudden, I'm laying on a motorboat on Lake Como, looking like George Clooney, right? And so, it trains a model of you and then can put it anywhere. You can use reference images. It's not that expensive. It's sort of priced for people who are influencers and social media marketers. So, it's like between, I think, 10 and $50 a month. So, very accessible for that audience. And you can make a lot of content very quickly that you would never, ever have access to otherwise, or you would have to do, an extensive Photoshop or other kind of paste up job to pull it off. But in this case, it's automatic. It's kind of amazing. $6.7 million.
I'll give you a quick comment on that, Charlie. What's disappointing to me is like the firepower of AI could be used to cure cancer, resolve climate change, invent and create completely new mediums and experiences. But this kind of use case is going to make a lot of money. It's going to feed weird social anxiety disorders and narcissism at scale through Instagram and TikTok and all that. But it's kind of like, man, can't we do better? Like, can't we do better with this firepower we're given? And instead, we're doing things that just create more like neuroses and more anxiety for teenage girls. Like, what? Like, is this really why we were put on this planet and given such computing power to misuse this great power? It's like, the superhero, when you're Spider-Man, like, why are you given that power? Not to misuse it. And I feel like as a race, we are failing right now on that level, as a human race.
So you mentioned teenage engineering a few moments ago, which is
I love them. I love them.
so they designed a product which probably turned out to be the product of CES, and I'm talking about the Rabbit R1. The Rabbit R1 is a device that is sort of the size of a Tamagotchi, right? One of those uh, uh, digital pets, and it's only got a couple of controls. It's got a tiny little screen, and you use it to interface with your existing apps on the go. So you go to a website called the Rabbit Hole, and you start to hook up your little Tamagotchi with all of your existing apps and passwords, and all of a sudden the Tamagotchi has every app that you have. It's just in the cloud. And this little
Yes.
tiny cheap device is $200, and they are promoting it as something they called a large action model. So it's AI that's designed to essentially operate your smartphone, and supposedly can be trained to do any kind of repetitive task like opening up YouTube and listening to NPR or whatever it is you do with your apps can be done on the Rabbit R1. And it was designed by Teenage Engineering. I mean, it looks like a giant Lego. Super cheap, $200. I mean, it's using something called a MediaTek processor, which I think is one of those things you buy on Alibaba for 25 cents for 1,000. And they've sold, since they introduced it at CES, they've sold 50,000 of the fuckers for $200. That's 10 million bucks. It's a lot. Tip of the hat to Teenage Engineering. It's also a completely new idea, right? This is like the opposite of the AI pin, which costs $500 more, and it requires a monthly subscription to a Wi-Fi, wireless service, a wireless carrier.
Well, I think like that when you think about that humane AI pin versus the rabbit, I think the rabbit represents a design concept that feels like an MIT Media Lab the design concept that's much more compelling in my mind. Like the idea of a AI based operating system and this cool AI appliance. Stay in the car. Is super amazing. Now, will this company succeed? I mean, Charlie, do the math. What's the cost of goods on that?
I know. Well, I
What's
don't
the cost of
understand.
goods?
I don't understand. How could they not have a monthly subscription? How do they make money? I mean, okay, they made this thing. Maybe they'll make $10 million on it. I don't know, but that's not
No,
going to
no
be
way.
enough.
Like
That's not going to be enough to have a hosting service indefinitely.
I think there's zero margin on that device right now. However many they sold, probably the more they sell, the deeper in the hole they get. There's I don't know who's backing it exactly. I don't know who it is, but if you think about it, like,
It's a Chinese
is
company.
this
It's a Chinese company.
right? When you think about like what like, but let's think of China's China Inc. Right? And when you think of China Inc. launching many companies into the world and into the West, wouldn't they love to blow up the iPhone? Wouldn't they love to have another TikTok like capability to own your entire data stream, everything you're doing and saying and thinking? So if you think about what this rabbit's really doing and who owns it, that's the part that scares the crap out of me. So let me just separate the two things or three things. I love Teenage Engineering, awesome design company. I have their music stuff. I love them. Yay, Teenage Engineering. I love the concept of an AI based OS. I truly dislike, and Charlie, you got to opine on this, the idea that the West will fall into another hole like TikTok, that we're just going to give up all of our data and thinking patterns to China. That's just absolutely insane. And the pricing on this makes zero sense. It's subsidized by China Inc. So if you're an American, if you're in Western Europe, you have to think 10,000 times before you actually use this in any other way other than experiment, because you are just speaking into the Chinese Inc. server. You know what I mean? And just handing over whatever you're doing and all your apps. And I mean, it is like a wholesale, pretty blatant attempt to just grab you in a way that TikTok
Well,
tried to grab pieces. This is like, let's go for the whole thing. And if people aren't aware, like if you're aware of what you're doing, just maybe just ship them your bank information and all your personal data and say, put it on a USB, just ship it over to Beijing. But like in the meanwhile, know
well,
what you're doing.
yeah.
Again,
Well,
I love teen engineering.
I would say, you're okay sharing your Spotify password, putting it down the rabbit hole.
Sure.
Putting your Spotify password in the rabbit hole will not harm you. But I do think you are correct, Roni. Putting your email, your your Google passwords, your
Yeah, your bank
bank
info,
information. I
your
mean,
your
that's crazy.
social
No,
network.
it's true. It's true. It's crazy. Look, David Weinstein is here. Let's not make him wait. We'll admit
Oh,
David.
he's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's awesome.
So he may know a few things about XR that we do not. Certainly, certainly Nvidia seems to have completely vacuumed up all of the corporate applications of the metaverse. David,
Hey, good morning.
welcome. You're with me and Roni Abovitz, although Roni is without his camera this morning because he is in a car.
No
Hey,
problem.
David.
Hey, Roni, how are you?
But I gather you guys know each other.
By reputation alone, I don't think we've ever had the pleasure of meeting in person, Roni. So good to meet you.
So yeah, I definitely know of you, David. And Nvidia was our first chip partner on the Magic Leap One, and
Indeed.
spent actually time with Jensen and team on it. So super
Yep.
excited to talk to you about what you're doing with XR now at Nvidia.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so why don't we jump in right there? Since we've not met, David, I would love to hear about your work at Nvidia, and then we'll dig into some different XR applications that you guys are excited about.
Perfect. Love it. Okay, so maybe I'll introduce myself first, and then kind of talk a little bit about my role and what what NVIDIA is focused on. So I'm Dave Weinstein. I'm Senior Director of XR at NVIDIA. My team is responsible for managing NVIDIA's XR products. And so those products range from low-level things. There's functionality built into the GPUs to accelerate XR, up through our SDKs and libraries and APIs, even some applications and tools. So we manage all of that, and then we work closely with our ecosystem partners. So those span the range of device manufacturers. As Roni said, we work closely with that ecosystem, as well as our partners over on the software side, making sure that their ISV applications are able to take advantage of all of the capabilities that we build into the GPUs. Um, so that's what we do. I'm fortunate to have an amazing team standing behind me that does all of that. But broadly speaking, NVIDIA focuses on what we like to call the four pillars of XR for NVIDIA. And they really kind of fall in line with NVIDIA's culture of working on the problems that we're uniquely positioned to solve. So I'll just kind of quickly tick them off, and then we can chat more about whatever part of that you want. Um, the four pillars start with us with photorealism. As you know, we've built hardware ray tracing into our GPUs with RTX, and this allows you to make absolutely beautiful uh, photorealistic VR and AR images, which is important for design review. Uh, there's many of us who really want XR to look real, to feel real, to behave like the real world. So it starts with photoreal. Uh, um, AI is crucial for XR. I deeply believe that AI is going to provide um, all of the UI for XR. Anybody who's tried to navigate an application using controllers knows that it's not the most intuitive thing to do. And I think we're seeing all sorts of amazing um, proof of concepts and products come out in the sort of this intersection of AI and XR, and I'd be happy to talk more about that.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
By the way,
the
David, on that topic,
yeah.
100,000,000% agree with you. When I started Magic Leap, my thought was the killer app for XR was AI.
Hmm.
And that when AI reached a maturity point, hopefully that would converge with the maturity point of the device and the sensing, and that next level experience would just define the future computing. I think it's coming together. People have separated these two fields, but as they come together, I think mind blowing stuff's coming, and I think you agree, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's so exciting. I mean, there are things that we've seen come and go that were neat or were fun, but I totally agree with you. I think this intersection of AI and XR is going to be incredibly fruitful for the ecosystem.
It's Jarvis.
Uh,
I mean, it's very like
yeah, it is.
if you grew up watching Iron Man, like basically this combination. I mean, you could experience a proto Jarvis today with like Omniverse and some AI and a ML2 or a Apple Vision Pro. I mean, you can you're gonna feel a bit Tony Stark even in 24 if you are a decent coder.
Yeah, and just seeing kind of the range of touch points for AI and XR. To your point, the kind of natural interaction of just being able to speak to the application is phenomenal. Is very Jarvis-like. But then even other things, other kind of AI aspects like nerfs as a graphics primitive, right? Uh, is amazing and is really kind of essential when you think about streaming. So streaming is one of our other four pillars. The devices, the headsets, they're phenomenal, but they're strapped to your head, and so they can only have so much heat dissipation, so much power built into them, and so split mode has to be the future, right? We're going to continue to have massive amounts of power, either in our local workstations or in data centers. And that's what, we're going to want to tap into that for AI, for photorealistic rendering. And so having a very easy to use transport layer, all of the APIs to support that is really what the ecosystem is building out now.
David, what year did you join Nvidia?
Exactly 8 years ago. So 2016 January was my start date. Before that, I'd been doing startup companies, which was a riot. I loved it, um, and I reached out to a good friend of mine as I was about to launch startup company number four. Or I shouldn't say about to launch, as I was ideating on a few different options for startup company number four, and he said, "Why don't you just come join us at Nvidia? This VR thing is going to be a big deal." And we need somebody to run enterprise VR. Why don't you come talk to some folks? So my reply was, I tried VR about 5 years ago, and it wasn't great. And he's like, yeah, no, it's a lot better now. And of course, it was, and has continued to get much better ever since then. So yeah, I joined about 8 years ago, um, and this was back in Nvidia's Maxwell days. So a few generations back, um, we we showed that VR was possible. We introduced our whole VR Works SDK in order to drive these headsets. Everything was PC attached back then, and there were some really good, fun early VR experiences. NVIDIA built VR Funhouse to kind of show off a bunch of physics-based things that we could do on our GPU. The lab came out. There was some early kind of light field work that NVIDIA did that was really cool. So yeah, it was exciting even since then, and as you know, it's just exploded.
Well, your timing has been impeccable, right? Because the AI explosion has been just utterly amazing, and Nvidia is like the underlying driver for almost all companies. But then I think people have lost sight. Love to get your take on it, and lost sight that the Omniverse and Nvidia's also belief in sort of this like immersive AR VR worlds coming together, and an XR, they, oh, that's over, it's AI, but you guys have kept on the vision of the combination. So like, where's that coming from? Because I believe in that. I think Jensen has great vision, but the market and analysts, so investors, like they just flit around left and right. But you guys have been pretty steady. What's kept that steadiness?
Yeah, to your point, Jensen has unbelievable vision, right? People say he lives in the future. He's able to see around corners. He does have extraordinary vision, and when he's right, he's right. And NVIDIA has been convinced for years now that AI is the killer app for GPUs, and has just continued to push and push and push. Obviously, we continue to do amazing graphics as well, and so I think it's just been Jensen's steadfast belief, commitment that has just permeated the company, and yeah, we've held tight to that. I mean, I think the other thing that's happened is um, if you look at what we've done with Omniverse is a simulation engine, right?
Mm.
It's been built to we obviously use it quite a bit for simulation for self-driving cars. We build it or we use it quite a bit, and our partners use it quite a bit on the robotics front. Um, but the point is, if we want to have AIs that are going to run around and operate in the real world, we need to first build virtual worlds and train them in those virtual worlds, right? Train them to be robots, train them to operate in those spaces. And so that was kind of the underpinnings, the beginnings was of Omniverse, was to enable that. And when you built out a framework, a platform to enable that level of simulation, of course, there's a million amazing things that you can do with it. One of them being XR, and that has led to some fantastic photoreal, ray traced, fully immersive XR experiences that we've shown off at various events and blogged about. Uh, and and I should mention, and I hope we'll have a little more time to talk about this. We're going to have a chance to show off all of this finally again in person at GTC in just a couple of months. So
Mm.
GTC, as you guys probably know, is Nvidia's GPU technology conference. We do it every year, and
I'm
for the
going this
last,
year. I'm going this year for the
I
first time.
I heard about that. I'm excited to get to see you in person, Charlie.
Yeah,
Um,
it seems like Nvidia is taking over my life. Every place I look, I'm involved with Nvidia. It's hard to get away
that
from you
was
guys.
that was exactly our goal. So I'm glad to hear it's working. Um, the XR team has had great content at our GTCs. Even over the last 4 years, even through COVID and virtual and all of that. But you got to put on the headset. You have to see
Yeah,
the devices. I mean, trying to describe XR to somebody through a screen is a little challenging. So we're super excited to be back in person in March, and we have a big XR zone that we built out with amazing demos. And uh, yeah, I look forward to seeing you there and
that's awesome.
showing you all of it.
So, can anybody get in? I mean, you guys reached out to me as a writer, but is it open to the public, or is this?
Everybody gets in. Yep. So
Wow. So you could draw a pretty big thousands of people should be there, right?
yes, it will be incredible. Jensen will do his keynote on the first day. Registration is currently open. You can go on our website, register, purchase. You can purchase a exhibition pass and come in and see all the amazing things we have on the expo floor. You can purchase a full conference pass, which entitles you to come in and see the sessions and special events. And yeah, there's an amazing lineup. If you just go to the NVIDIA website, you can find out all about it.
David, can I make a wish request of you guys? Um,
Sure.
Qualcomm with Snapdragon has really made a big run at being the XR chip of choice for like almost all device makers, with the exception being the ML2 is running on an AMD and Apple's got their own chip, but almost everyone else is on Snapdragon. And the thing NVIDIA brings is not only immense graphics firepower, but immense AI firepower. And I, it would be kind of wonderful, just speaking for the industry for a second, not that I had an official spot speaking for the industry, but like if NVIDIA came out with like the ultimate XR chip that gave you like crazy graphics blended with AI, lightweight, power, battery. I think if you want to drive this revolution to the next level, where you can drive the kind of 4K plus graphics and AI together, I'm trying to imagine like how could NVIDIA not do that? I know you guys have been making a ton on the heavy iron in the back end, but that front end probably needs NVIDIA to focus on it. You probably can't comment on this too much, but it was just sort of my wish to you.
Yeah, no, it's a good wish. And you're right, I can't comment on it. But um, this you're not the first person to bring this up. um, Nvidia um, takes this opportunity seriously, and so yeah, just know that we're thinking about this, and stay tuned. But your point is well taken.
Awesome.
I mean, there's it's not going to be the case that that everything is happening in one particular place. It's not going to be the case that all of the rendering and pixel generation happens on device. It's also not going to be the case that all of it happens in the cloud 800 miles away, right? So what's really interesting to me is these hybrid systems where you start to think about what's an intelligent way to split the rendering and AI components of your pipeline so that you're optimizing for the right thing, right? I have a certain amount of battery power in device. I don't want to burn that all out in 90 minutes. It needs to last for a significant amount of time. And so, how do I offload some of the pieces? And we've seen some really interesting solutions over the years. So one way that you can do this is you can do indirect illumination, sort of the global illumination pieces of rendering in the cloud, and then local illumination on headset, right? And then by streaming those, this is called RTXGI, by the way. I'm not making this up on the fly. This is actually something that NVIDIA research has shown off. You can combine those then locally. And one of the great things about something like a streaming RTXGI solution is the human visual system is very tolerant of high amounts of latency for things like shadows, global illumination effects. And so it's okay if it takes 100 milliseconds to kind of get an update to all of that GI, as long as you're getting the direct illumination very quickly as you move your head.
I agree. And
Similarly, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go on, David. Go on.
I was just going to say, there are numerous other ways we've seen, layered depth images where you sort of render the scene in layers, and that allows you dynamically on the headset as a person is moving around to kind of adjust those layers to do updates. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I think that streaming nerfs are a really interesting intermediate representation where you do a bunch of compute off in the cloud, and then you can do lighter weight compute locally, and still get amazing photoreal results.
I
So,
think
David, I spent a ton of time. Sorry, Charlie, really, really quick. I just want to finish on David's thing. We spent a ton of time working on this problem at Magic Leap, and one of the beautiful things about what you're describing is if you got an NVIDIA A100 backend full of like just rich graphics and AI, integration with the Unreal Engine, and you guys and Epic have had a really good relationship. And then if your front end has this to be determined NVIDIA chip, what's amazing there is because of CUDA and your software layers, you can imagine the hyper optimization between what is happening on my head and what is happening in my pocket and what's happening on the server. If we want to get to like truly amazing photorealistic avatar type worlds, I don't think it's going to be having to jump between different companies, because I think everything is so tight. Tolerances are, I mean, it's like milliseconds, half milliseconds, and sub things. You guys could actually create a chain that would give Apple a lot of pain, because they don't control the NVIDIA backend, right? Even though
Mhm.
they make an amazing chip for the A100, if you have a competitor, you can go from chip to cloud through Unreal and in a way that would probably be best in class of anybody right now. Anyway, more wish list stuff. Charlie, back to you.
I was just going to point out that Qualcomm has been a big advocate of split rendering for the past 5 years, at least since the second generation of Snapdragon. Spaces is built to optimize split rendering. So they've been thinking along the same lines. Obviously, they are a competitor, and
Mhm.
obviously there are ways that Nvidia can compete with them and others. And I'm sure You will, as you said, stay tuned. Can't wait to see how that unfolds. But a very similar approach, right? The idea that you're
Mhm.
just not going to get that much compute close to the person. You get
Right.
some, and you have to be clever about what you do locally and how it mixes with the compute in the cloud, which of course is subject to more latency. So it's a very complicated, interesting technology. I wanted to rewind real quickly just because I'm very literal minded. And you said there were four main things. You started
Yep.
off with photorealism and
Yep.
the critical relationship of XR and AI. We got to split rendering. What is number four? Before we run out of time, what is number four?
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought it back to us. And just to clarify, number three is kind of streaming in general, which includes split rendering and AI from the cloud and all of those pieces. So those are number three. And not to, I don't want to just kind of skim over that because doing streaming well is really hard, right?
Mm.
Getting those latencies down, and there's great technology being built out from the telcos and things like 5G to really drive down the latencies. And so it's an important thing to kind of keep an eye on. So I didn't want to just gloss over that. But to answer your question, number four is collaboration, right? I think collaboration is a superpower of XR, right? It's great that we can be here doing this in Zoom. I'm a big fan, but I love the idea of being able to put on a headset and not just see cartoon version of Charlie, but actually feel like you and I are there. And again, we've seen proof of concepts of this. Um, We've seen good examples. I mean, Autodesk VRED has done collaboration forever, and we've already talked a little bit about Omniverse, but Omniverse is really a collaboration engine. Underpinning Omniverse is the Nucleus server, which is a super fast database to facilitate collaboration around USD assets. And so, I'm super excited about collaboration finally kind of permeating the XR ecosystem, and I think we're close.
Um, and do you mean that from an infrastructure standpoint rather than from necessarily a hardware standpoint, right?
Yeah, I mean it. I mean it from the standpoint of having people collaborate, right? So you and I in a virtual environment collaborating, but also getting the applications all kind of piped into an infrastructure together. And that's been, a lot of the effort around Omniverse is building this ecosystem through connectors where all of the different DCC tools can talk to Omniverse because USD ends up being this lingua franca, right? As long as everything can go in and out of USD, we're good. And then using that, we can build these super exciting workflows and have real time collaboration around assets.
So, one thing just to make clear to the listeners, USD means Universal Scene Description. It's a language that originated with Pixar that's been widely adopted as an open source way for people to interact with and inside of 3D. Fair?
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I should have clarified.
And with regard to Omniverse, and you mentioned the simulation engine and the emphasis on photorealism, because that is something that commercial VR headsets, at least that are accessible to consumers, have had a hard time with. So when we're talking about people using this commercially, then are they using higher end headsets, or are they just working off of monitors, or what is the practice there?
Yeah, so I think so driving photoreal graphics is really a rendering problem. And with all due respect to Qualcomm and others, as I said before, you just don't have enough compute on your head in a wireless headset to drive photoreal graphics. That you can't render fast enough. And so, that's something that needs a big GPU. Could be local, could be in the cloud. It doesn't matter. Um, what inspires me about the headsets is they have phenomenal displays, They have a brilliant array of sensors that are being built in order to sense everything from, body pose, biometrics, all of it. Uh, but the rendering problem and the AI problem, solving, doing large language model inference, you're just not going to be able to do that in a small power envelope, right? And so, photoreal to me means bigger compute, and so does big AI.
Let's talk about AI and XR for a minute. What that has always meant to me, and I think you and Roni will both have more perspective on this than I do. What that has always meant to me is what Alvin Graylin and I used to debate about, right? What can you conjure worlds into existence using
Mm-hmm.
natural language, right?
Yep.
So, David, let's do this interview on the beach, and there we are.
Yeah. And there we are. Right. Yeah.
So,
And
so, so that's the one most obvious one, right? But there must be
yeah.
dozens of others that I'm just
Oh,
not
Charlie,
thinking
there's
about.
like thousands
I
more
know,
more
I know.
things.
Well, let's talk about some of those.
Yeah. Okay. So the one you just mentioned is kind of the mid journey. Give me a picture of a beach. Give me a picture of
Right.
whatever. So text to X, where X is an image, and let's just say speech to X because we're in an immersive environment and typing is hard,
Yeah.
and we know that the AI is there for that. So speech to image, great. Speech to video, done. Right? There's lots of good examples of that. Takes a little bit longer, but we have very cool early examples of speech to video. We have speech to environment map, right? And some partners. This is obviously is a great use case for immersive because I don't just want a image that I can put on the wall in front of me. I want to create an entire environment or environment map around me for relighting my car or whatever it is. But then speech to 3D is really cool. And we've seen some early examples. Luma AI, if you go to their webpage, they have Genie up, and you can say, "Give me a 3D model of a schnauzer wearing a party hat," and out comes a 3D model. It's not just an image; it's a 3D model, right? And so and now people are doing speech to nerf, right? So you can actually get kind of a light field out, which again is kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, that's
But yeah,
crazy.
speech as your user interface to content creation. And I've avoided saying the word metaverse so far, but the metaverse is a big empty space until we populate it with a bunch of amazing things. And I love the idea of just being able to say, populate this as a beach environment, and it's not just an image. There are actual umbrellas and actual the rest of it. So yes, for content creation, Gen AI is incredible. There are certainly other exciting ways that we'll be able to use it. We have applications like Omniverse, like Autodesk VRED, like others, where it would be great to be able to just speak to VRED, right? To say to VRED, change the car to green, open the passenger door, let me see this model, in a different environment. And in this case, I'm not speaking to whatever something that is a bespoke application meant to just generate content built on an LM. I'm speaking to VRED with an AI agent sitting in the middle that is and you can do this without having to change anything about VRED, without having to change anything about your content creation tools. And so using speech as a way to control the applications that we know and love every day, to me is also really exciting, right? Because I'm not
So,
going to
so David,
throw
I
away.
just have to throw, I got to
Sure.
throw this in because as you're talking, and the tech people listening in who could follow, this is amazing. But for the non-tech folks, what they may not understand is like you just described a word that came from the second century, uh, abracadabra, right? So people think that's like the classic magician thing, but if you actually look at the etymology of the word abracadabra, it comes back from like almost 2,000 years ago, it derives from a Hebrew word, which is I create, like the word. So I
Mm.
speak and I create, which is
Mhm.
literally a 2,000-year-old concept. And it's just, it's why I named our company Magically, because I thought like magic would actually appear. But what's interesting is all the tech stuff is describing how it works, but to the user, you are going to speak and you will create worlds in exactly the same manner as these 2,000-year-old concepts, which you could read about throughout the Middle Ages, but it goes all the way back to like almost 2,000 years ago. This idea that creation through speech, which was magic, and people go that's not real. But what's interesting with what we're describing here, that is becoming absolutely real, isn't it? I mean, it's
Yeah,
sort of like
it
for a
is.
listener who doesn't get the tech part, bottom line is you're going to have these like Harry Potter like powers. You're going to speak and gesture and point at things, and entire worlds will appear way beyond what's happening in Midjourney today. It's going to be
Yeah.
very Harry Potter like.
Well, and that's why, we've said this a couple of times now, this intersection of AI and XR. The first time that I put on a good VR headset and was tricked, my brain was tricked into believing that I was in this other environment. We all had that experience, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, whenever it was. And it was a phenomenal magic trick, right? Really incredible. And it's just gotten better and better. And now we have this second magical technology where we can just conjure stuff into existence by speaking. And so, of course, when you put together these two magical things, one that provides an illusion of an environment, and the other that's able to populate that environment, it's just amazing.
Wow. Well, that is actually a great place for us to wrap up the show, David. It's been great having you. As always, Roni, we never allow enough time for the guests, but then a podcast that's over an hour long may be a bit much, especially since we did kind of nerd out today and dig deep with David
We
into.
nerded out.
Yeah, we dug deep into topics. We stay more surface level, David, but this has been a great adventure, and I really appreciate you taking us there. So
Of
I'll look
course.
forward to meeting you in March.
Yeah, can't wait. See you at GTC. Thanks, guys. This
Yes.
has been a lot of fun.
All right, everybody.
Thank
It's
you,
been a
David.
great show. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you here next week.